Hey everybody, welcome back. Psych here. This is part 2 of my all-time favorite garage psych singles, 45 RPM speed. And some of these go all the way back for me, all the way back to my roots. And we're talking like 2009, 2010 when I started, kind of learning the basics, but kind of also semi-diving deep into the psychedelic dwellings. And yeah, we're going to do the same formula like last time. We're going to dive into 4 different singles. I got stuff all written down on notes once again. So I'll kind of share the basics and kind of tell you a little bit what I think of it and so forth. And the basic idea behind this video is just for you guys to check out some singles if you haven't heard these before. Check them out on streaming here on YouTube. So the rules behind this are basically if one track is a 5-star winner and the B-side is, say, a dud, it still makes its way to this list. I'm still going to showcase it, and if it's, of course, both sides are 5-star or 4.5 stars that equal out to a 5-star single, they found their way to this list as well. So I think they're all US singles this time except for one. I actually don't own any of these, by the way, but I might have fooled some of you with my thumbnail trickery. But yeah, I like kind of going crazy on the thumbnails, but it gets you guys to watch it, right? That's not what I'm all about. I'm actually here to educate, not just clickbait anybody. But I do have some things that are actually connected to some of these 45s. They are featured on some compilations and archival things and just different things like that. So this first one we're starting off with. This is a single called On the Road South. And the B-side is Tell Her No, which is a Zombies cover by a band called the Stereo Shoestring. Check out this clip.
As I walk the road south, 1,000 people in confusion swirl about me in a huge flood. I hear thunder crash. Black is black and all is blackness. 1,000 people going nowhere. Nobody seems to understand me.
Pretty wild, right? So there's a little bit of a backstory to this one, and that might be one of the heaviest tracks I've ever heard from 1968. Up there with, alongside Blue Cheer, Baby Grandmothers. I've never come across anything sludgier or heavier that early on. I think it was like early 68 it was recorded, so up there with, Hendrix Experience too. I mean, there's just a handful of those outrageously thunderous garage singles. So the A-side, if it sounded familiar to you at all, it's actually, they take a little excerpt and kind of rework their own track from a Pretty Things track, Defecting Gray, which I do believe is the A-side, right? So Defecting Gray, it's like a minute into this track, it gets kind of wild, it gets a little frantic in spots, and there's this kind of really nasty riff that they play. So they basically took that little 15-second clip from that track, Defecting Gray, and turned it into their own unique thing. And it's just one of the nastiest, like, modified fuzz pedal sounds I've ever heard. And I think there's some fuzz bass on top of that, on top of the fuzz tone, which makes it so monstrous and thunderous already. You got these kind of post-punky vocals as well. Yeah, so I marked down here, it was recorded April 68 in Houston. But I think the band was originally from Corpus Christi, Texas. And I think this was their only single. They might have had one more. But they also, the following year, released a single called Mary Ann, which is under the name The Red House. And that came out the following year. And it's very similar to On the Road South, or sort of their reworking of the Pretty Things track. But it's a little more mid-tempo, not as fuzzed up, but it's more like kind of more of a jangly, kind of danceable kind of number. But it's also very good as well to check out. I mean, if they're playing that stuff at teen hops of that magnitude, it's kind of one of those Back to the Future moments. I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. Your kids are going to love it. Because they were certainly 5 years ahead of their time. It's kind of a nice little transition into our next single, I'm 5 Years Ahead of My Time by Third Bardo.
It may seem like I'm coming on strong, but I know just where it's at for me. I'm through, can't all bad, they're right or wrong. I've unlocked the door to life's mystery. Step inside my mind, look ahead, don't look behind. I'm 5 years ahead of my time.
I don't own this single, but I do have it on a compilation here. It's a Pebbles Classic, Volume 3. And it is featured on here. It's the first track on side 2. So the Third Bardo, yeah, this is their only single they released back in the day. Came out on Roulette Records. It was a promo only. Yeah, Sundays would later reissue those tracks, but also I think there's like maybe 2 or 3 more songs they had during those sessions, and they actually put them on this compilation back in 2000 through Sundays. And it's just a awesome quintessential garage psych track. Opens up with some like eerie chords, eerie kind of guitar chords in the intro and outro. And it's a very simplistic track lyrically. I mean, it's just talking about, hey, step into my life, girl, look into my eyes, step into my mind. I'm 5 years ahead of my time. And that's the whole premise of it, I guess, trying to convince a girl that, might be a little too much for you, but hey, I'm ahead of my time. Yeah, so it was recorded in 1967 and released that same year, pretty early on. And both tracks were actually written by Victoria Pike, who was married to the arranger, Teddy Randazzo, who had arranged a lot of tracks back in the day around this kind of prime 60s era. And it was also written by Rusty Evans, who you guys may know through The Deep, The Freak Scene. And the B-side to this is actually interesting too. It's Rainbow Life, or My Rainbow Life as it sometimes gets credited as. And they also, you may have heard that track through The Freak Scene, which I might actually prefer this version of Rainbow Life. Yeah, it's called My Rainbow Life on here. It's a little more fine-tuned, and they feature like some bells and maybe a little more Eastern influences on that track. A little more prominent on the LP cut. But it's kind of interesting to hear where it would eventually develop into with the original single. So with that said, I think both tracks, both Rainbow Life and 5 Years Ahead of My Time, are just a nice contrast, and they really work together well. They're both very kind of Eastern tinged, kind of punky in some aspects, and got this kind of eerie whimsicalness about it that I just really think resonates pretty heavily off of it. Pretty basic tracks, but I think they just really work, and it was one of the very early garage singles I got into. I just know it so well that I feel like I don't even need to hear it anymore, but of course I came back to it upon looking back on my list. So yeah, it's a Pebbles classic, so this is definitely one of those things, probably my favorite volume of the Pebbles series, by the way. I mean, there's like so many offshoots and volumes, but this is definitely one of the stronger ones. Sound quality is not that great on all this, but still essential pickup, essential track list, and that also explains this next one too. So did I say everything I wanted to about it? Let's see. Yeah, the lead vocalist, Jeff Mon, he would later go on to have a LP on Vanguard called Reality, which I don't own. Don't know if I'm going to pick that one up. I don't remember enjoying it that much when I streamed it, but yeah, it's just got a very Eastern flair to especially Rainbow Life, but they're based out of New York City, by the way, and it was a very short-lived band. They didn't take off with that single. There were no stock copies on Roulette. But continuing on, we'll go to the third single here, with the A-side being B-side, Beeside, by Tintern Abbey.
It's buzzing all day long. What's a hurry? There's surely something wrong. Everybody's got new clothes, make me feel kind of old. But in my heart I really know old clothes don't buy my soul. Fix me up with your sweet dose. Now feeling like it goes. Break it up, let's have it now. Girl, don't you know I need it all the time? Fix me up with your sweet dose. Now feeling like a ghost.
And the B-side being Vacuum Cleaner as well. I think both tracks are probably 5-star tracks alone, or 4.5, equaling out to a 5-star. There is no like perfect tracks, right? Maybe in some cases, but actually both tracks were featured on this comp. Chocolate Soup for Diabetics, it's the first volume. And this one does have pretty poor sound quality. This came out in like 1980. I think it's on the Relic label, is that right? Yeah, Relics. Mostly UK singles, but there are a couple. I think there's one US single here. The Nutches, Open Up Your Mind. Then, of course, the rest of this is just like pure UK Psych bliss. Dandelions Chariot, The Flies, One in a Million, Friedrich Hernando, Apple's the Other Side. I mean, this thing's just chock full of some of the best. I have this one. I have Volume 3 as well. But speaking of Tintern Abbey, I got this one here too, the Anthology B-side. It's a 2 LP set. I don't know if this one really sold very well. This one gets heavily marked down when you see it on like Discogs, and even my local shop cut the price in half. So I think this one came out like 2021, I want to say, or 22. The CD came out first, and then they finally pressed it on. It's like deep purple vinyl. This has all their sessions together, and I mean, if that doesn't tell you how praised the single is, I don't know what does. But yeah, you got a few members here that would later go on to Elmer Gantry's Velvet Opera. You got Colin Forster, Dave McTavish, and Paul Brett. I'm actually looking for the Paul Brett Sage record on Janus. Just haven't come across a clean copy. This single also came out in 1967, if I didn't mention already. Both tracks comped several times. Nuggets 2 box set, the Rebel collections, Chocolate Soup for Diabetics, just several compilations. And then I just mentioned kind of what it described it as. Yeah, both tracks, especially Vacuum Cleaner, gives me a very strong, like, I mean, it's kind of a straight to the point kind of song, like a lot of UK sort of pop psych, pop rock kind of songs from that time period. They're very straight ahead, straightforward. A lot of bashing cymbal work going on that track, and it's just very swinging London. Just kind of swept into the whole Piccadilly Circus at that time, sweeping it all in. I mean, it's just got some great drum grooves to it, great hook, Fix Me Up With Your Sweet Dose, Now I'm Feeling Like a Ghost. I don't even know if the title Vacuum Cleaner even really relates to any of the lyrics per se, but it is kind of a funny title though. Maybe some of that dry British humor going on, but yeah, B-side gets a little more dreamy on that side. Might be some backward guitar work going on, and some very faint mellotron in the background, kind of sweeping you into the sort of galactic mix happening. And also very good lyrics as well. Busy bee, buzzing all day long. Just a quintessential all-timer for me as far as like the UK top of the pops sort of shindig singles, whatever you want to call it, of its time period. Just a snapshot of you know, the UK scene at the time, what was happening there. So I think that's all I have to say about it. Just keeping it kind of sweet and short. And then on to this last one. I don't have this 45 either, and there's no, as far as I know, compilations of this 45. I think the A-side is Time, and then the B-side is In My Dreams from 1968 by a group called John Covert and the Crystal Image.
Wishing I'd done something worth what I've gotten, counting the days that I've wasted away, knowing myself long as I placidly wait for my day.
Time can heal a heart, torment a mind.
I see my life. Is it sunlight shining? I see mystery and faces I've not seen. I see good times.
They were based from San Joaquin, California, but they might have had their label based out of Burbank, so I don't know if they were traveling back and forth or what the case was there. Maybe they're just kind of traveling throughout the West Coast, because they do seem like a very heavily gigging sort of band all the way up into the late 70s and even to modern day. I think there's been some like lineup changes. Just it's always been kind of a local sort of cover band for the longest time. But they do have some original tracks early on and definitely had a very psychedelic sort of, I don't know, maybe Yankee Dollar kind of sound. I'm thinking of like the organ and the male-female harmonies is what kind of brought that band to mind. But yeah, their single never sold on Discogs to this day. I think they might have had one other single. I don't remember what it sounds like, but I do remember it not leaving a greater impression than this one. And it's just very much a very sleeper. It's a very sleepy 45. No one's really talking about this one. And yeah, they only released 3 private LPs back in their day on the Dream label, which is their own private label. 2 other 60 singles, Can You Feel It? That's the one. And then they actually released another, just like the Stereo Shoestring, went under a different name for a moment, Mother's Worry, with a single called Step Back, and then the B-side Hard Blade of Grass. Hard Blade of Grass, I remember it being on YouTube. I think that was my favorite of the 2. Can't seem to find it now on there, but yeah, they were basically kind of a loungy flavored kind of psych sound. And in the later years, they became a covers band I mentioned here. But yeah, Time in My Dreams, it's got some cool wah fuzz pedal effects on that B-side. Love the vocals on there too. It's got this kind of like, I don't know, sort of like a 30-year-old kind of vocalist trying to get hip with the scene. A little more adult in nature. Maybe they were in their 30s at this point, I don't know. But it's just a very cool sound for its time. I don't know what it is, what's so special about it, but again, very straight ahead. It doesn't have a whole lot of blemishes working for it. It's just a lot of great punchy hooks. And I like stuff with hooks and harmonies. And I guess that's why it lands on this list. And I think that's about it. So let me know what you think of the list. Again, I encourage you to check these out on YouTube. Seek them out. And thanks for joining in. Part 3. Don't know when it's going to come along, but I'm just kind of slowly sneaking my way, pushing this thread out. And we shall see you soon.